All right, we're recording now, and I'm just going to give it a second, and then I'll go into my intro.
Okay.
Hey guys, goodness gracious, it's one of those Mondays. Bear with me. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Real Estate Unfiltered. I'm Marley Russell, and I'm pretty psyched for this guest tonight. He's a fellow Radford alum, so already love him, and he is the VP of Mortgage Lending at Guaranteed Rate, Jason Bialek. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm good. It's definitely a Monday, if you can't tell. Hope your day was going well. But I'm so glad that you decided to, raise your hand, want to join this, and, just be on this episode. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to kind of jump right into personally my favorite question. Are you ready?
Absolutely. Go ahead.
Cool. So my favorite question always to ask is, how did you fall into this industry and specifically lending?
It's a great question. I was in my 20s a long time ago and didn't know what I wanted to do specifically with my life, I guess. But when I graduated from Radford, just as you did, I had a finance background. I was a finance major. I bounced around in my 20s like a lot of people do. And, I thought I wanted to be a financial advisor, like a stockbroker. So, actually did the training class of Morgan Stanley Dean Witter back then, and worked in the World Trade Center for 3.5 weeks before it came,
Wow.
like literally 9 months before it came down. So it was pretty
Wow. That's
interesting
wild.
experience. Yeah.
Yeah.
And to see that happen like 9 months later is like, wow, it could have been you. But I was so young and just, it was a crazy time and just trying to decide what I wanted to do. But I basically, I failed as a stockbroker. I look at it as a failure, but it was really a reward because it made me like even work harder to figure out what I wanted to do. I thought about even maybe being a realtor, but I always knew I had that numbers background, and I had a gift for numbers. My dad was a CPA for the railroad, and
That's
always,
awesome.
oh yeah, always thought numbers in my head like all the time. And I still like love the stock market and all that type of stuff, but mortgage lending, I always just was fascinated by it, and I was like, I could do that. I'd be really good at that, and just really went for it in my late 20s.
That's awesome though. And more power to you. I'm the first to say, like, I am not a numbers person. And like, I do all the communication, talking, all that fun stuff. Matthew, my husband, does the numbers. So, like, but I mean, with your finance background, this probably is just like always intriguing to you. Um, and you were saying, talking about that being like, failing out of the stock market. I don't really consider that failing because it's just kind of like a stepping stone for you to figure out truly what you're passionate about. Um,
Absolutely. I'm just really hard on myself. So I probably, just like I failed at this, let me be successful at this. And I'm just really, really very driven. So, I've always been fascinated by real estate. I'm a real estate investor too. I've been fortunate enough to buy some rental properties and things over the
cool.
years too. And, I've always been fascinated by it, but I think my numbers aspect just makes me better to be like a lender instead of necessarily a realtor. I think, you guys have a ton of patience, and maybe I don't have quite as much patience as you do. So maybe I should be a lender. I don't know.
That's funny you say that because um, I would say my toddler has taught me patience before him. But yeah, I mean, I think your job is just as hard. It's just on a different level,
Yeah,
different
it's just
facet of
different.
it. So, but no, that's awesome. So, with your, I guess, finance background and, having all the experience you do you feel that it kind of helps you whenever you are jumping into a new investment property and kind of playing with all those numbers and making sure it lines up right? Or do you think it kind of like you overthink it sometimes?
No, I think it really, really helps because, I can look at, whether a situation I think is profitable or not profitable. And, I think some people just see the property and maybe don't
Mhm.
see the numbers, and that's okay. I mean, people, you should love your property that you're buying, but
Yeah.
I definitely think I see the numbers, but sometimes, I think it can bite me. I tried to flip a property years ago and it didn't work out so well. It was a different market. I mean, it might have
Yeah.
worked in the market we've had, it might have worked a little bit better. But I saw all the numbers, but like all the cost on it to like fix the property wound up costing me way more than I thought. And that's not my forte, fixing things and knowing like my girlfriend is more handy than me. So.
So is she the one that likes power tools then?
Well, I mean, not necessarily, but she could like hang a light, and I probably couldn't figure out how to do that, as crazy as that is.
Well, it is kind of crazy though, but like with investment properties, you really have to put like a different lens on it because a lot of the times folks are going into it thinking it's going to be their home and they're going to make it all pretty and it's going to be homey and like cozy. And you have to put a business hat on for that instead to really make sure that it's going to make sense in the long run. Um, and on top of that, like if it's some of your first investments, like you don't know what you're getting into, especially whenever you open up walls, like game on, because you just never know what you're going to find sometimes. And then you have to fix it.
Absolutely, absolutely, no doubt about it. And I bought like when I did mine, I bought an older property. I liked the
Mhm.
property. It was an old Victorian, actually.
Oh,
Yeah, and
I love it.
we wound up opening up the walls and doing some things, and I thought I was going to spend X amount, and I
Mhm.
wound up spending twice as much as I thought.
Oh, was that one of like your first properties that you did, or?
One of them that I tried to flip, yeah, I had a
Okay.
few rentals at the time, but it was one of them
Mhm.
that I said, "I'm gonna flip this. I'm gonna flip this," and, because I thought, it actually it had a reverse mortgage on it, so I looked at the
Mhm.
numbers, I'm like, if it had a reverse mortgage on it, it was obviously, a good loan to value on it, and it was worth trying to get, and I was able to get it for a steal at the time, and still at the time, I thought, but yeah, I wound up putting twice as much into it. The market wasn't the same. I held it for almost 2 years, believe it or
Well,
not.
that probably helped with capital gains though.
That's true.
Yeah.
So that yeah, some things worked out well. There you go. But yeah, I just didn't make any profit much on it, and there was a lot of headaches. There was a lot of me having to go over there and mow the lawn and do
Yeah.
things I didn't think I was going to do.
You're like, "I thought I was gonna be done with this."
Yeah,
Um, now for some of the folks that might not know who are watching it, can you explain, just a quick gist of like what a reverse mortgage is?
sure. And we do them at guaranteed rate. However, I don't I'm enough. I know enough to be dangerous, but I don't really
Okay.
get completely involved in it because we have a reverse mortgage department. But
Mhm.
basically, if you're 62 or older, you do not have to qualify based on credit at all. It's basically completely on loan to value. And you can actually use a reverse mortgage as a refinance, or you could use it as a purchase. Even there's a called a HECM mortgage, HECM, if you Google it, and that's for a reverse mortgage purchase. But
Hmm,
it's basically, if the easiest way to describe it is an insurance product on your house. And the good thing about it is, the real positive thing about it is, if you can qualify for a reverse mortgage, you do not have to make a payment on the house ever. You keep
that's
it until
awesome.
you die. Yep.
Okay. So I bet are those pretty, um, you know, up there with positive what words am I trying to use right now? Um, are they favorable? Like, are a lot of folks, interested in getting those, or are they just kind of going for the typical standard mortgage?
Yeah, I don't think a lot of folks are interested in them because there's just so many. I think there's a lot of bad publicity about them, to be quite honest. And I
Okay.
know you see these commercials and all this stuff, but I can just tell you right now, it's heavily regulated. They have to go like legally. They have to go to a class for it to talk
Mhm.
about it with a consultant and everything just to get the reverse mortgage. So there's a lot of steps the government has in place for them before we just write a reverse mortgage on someone. And I mean, there are positives and negatives to anything you do, and
Mhm.
they go over all those. And if you fit the mold, it's certainly something that you should definitely take advantage of, because you don't ever have to make a payment ever again on it. That is the definite positive.
Mhm.
The fees are a little bit higher on it than a traditional mortgage, so that's something to consider. And there's other aspects about it. But for someone that is in a situation where they necessarily don't have like a lot of heirs that they're potentially going to leave anything to, and they don't want to
Mhm.
make a mortgage payment, it's really the right fit for someone like that. But we don't do a ton of them, but our reverse mortgage specialist can really get deep involved into it. And yeah, it's something that can be really good for the right person.
Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you for explaining that because I'm sure there's a lot of people that might have heard of them and not known a ton of info about it. So thank you for that. Um,
Absolutely.
Now, kind of diving into a fun funnier topic. And I always kind of like to ask this question because I come from the recruiting background where there's cold calling just like there is with real estate. And I'm sure in your business, there's also that too. So, right off the top of your head, if you know, what is the funniest cold calling story that kind of comes to mind to you that you've ever
Uh,
had?
Yeah, I'd say calling somebody that like it was like a Zillow lead or some type of lead that you got, and it was actually someone that you knew. Like they know
Mm.
you, and you know them, and you call them, and they didn't realize it's you calling them, and they're like, "Listen, I'm not taking any call." They think you're like a cold caller, and you really actually know them, but it's a cold call, but it really isn't, kind of things.
That's funny. That's almost like if you're on Tinder and like you swiped right on and you both match and you both knew each other.
I
Um,
can't ever say I've been on there, so I don't know for sure.
well, that's how I met my husband. So that's
Really?
yeah, back in 2013. So right as it
Wow.
like first started, Catfish was going on MTV too. And I'm just like, all right, if I meet this guy in person, I need to tell someone like where I am, who I'm meeting, like I have to have a reason to leave. And I ended up just like ignoring my dad's calls for like 4 hours because I was supposed to be home.
Yeah,
And I
well,
was
my
like, "No."
girlfriend actually did the same thing to me. I met her in real life, but she did the same thing to me, actually. She, like, told, like, all these friends, like, "This is where I'm at," and all that.
Well, you just never know. You just never know. But yeah, so that's funny though. I couldn't imagine doing a cold call and then it's actually someone you know and it's like, "Wait a minute."
Yeah, it
Um,
happens, I've lived here since, for forever, since
well,
before
you
you
went
were born, so
well, you went to Cave Spring, right?
I did, yeah.
Yeah. So I live right on that side, like right behind Cave Spring actually now. So,
Cool. Yeah, my parents, they just passed away this year, but
oh, sorry.
They lived in Penn Forest. We still have the house, actually.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, and what side of town do you live on now? Still on this side or?
I'm off Roselawn, so that's where I'm at
Oh,
now. I've been
gotcha.
at Roselawn's great. I've been back here, for about 12 years, so it's been great.
Awesome. Did you ever move away from Roanoke? Well, I guess you did if you went to the stock market up in New York, but,
Yeah,
uh
so I worked in New York for 3.5 weeks, but I was living in the Washington, DC metro area for
okay.
about 5 years in my early 20s, and, I was just, it was a life experience that I recommend for everyone that's, like, from the Roanoke area. Just get out when you're in your 20s for a little bit. I spent 5 years out of town, and it
Mhm.
made me really appreciate Roanoke 'cause I did not like Roanoke in my early 20s. And there was just nothing to do back then. It's definitely changed a lot, but there was just nothing for me to do back then. I was definitely ready for a different experience. But then when I got into my later 20s, I was ready to come back.
Yeah. I feel like I've heard a lot of that with, like, my husband's friends because he grew up here. He grew up on, in North County, and went to Northside and all of that. I'm actually a transplant, so I grew up in Gainesville, Manassas area.
Yeah.
So I know that, crazy traffic of 66 and 95 all too well. So whenever I went to Radford and we ended up meeting and we had the opportunity to come back down here, I was like, yes, please. But a lot of his friends in that similar age group, everyone has kind of gone out, branched out, and then has come back once they're ready to kind of settle down, start a family, have kids, be with their parents again. So I think that's kind of a common trend. Um,
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm glad I did it. I was able to come back here, and my parents before they passed, they really needed me too, and
mm,
me and my brother are right here to help out and do a lot for them. And I'm thankful that I was able to spend a lot of time with them before that happened.
yeah.
And and like I said, they really needed us. And if I was like 4 hours away or further, I would have felt really guilty.
hmm No. Well, I'm glad that you were able to have that time with them, though. That's
Mhm.
amazing. I'm sure they appreciated that too. Um, Now, kind of on a different note, a little bit. I'm always intrigued with this, especially with someone who has as much experience as you do in the industry. What is a piece of advice that you wish that you could go back and tell your younger self that's just getting into this industry?
Get ready for the roller coaster of an industry. Yeah, I mean it's up and down. it's an up and down industry. Be as level headed as you can. I felt that like I have been. I mean, there's been times where I felt like I've made mistakes, just like anybody. Um,
Hmm.
but be level headed and do your best every day. And you know, my parents always told me like like have fun a little bit. I was
Yeah.
he's serious. Do this. I'd say take a lot of things less seriously. Probably be the best advice I could give myself that I try to give myself now, though, because maybe sometimes I took everything too seriously and maybe get a little frustrated when hey, just laugh it off, laugh
Hmm.
it off, and I
Yep.
think I've gotten better at that for sure, but definitely in the beginning and even midway through my career, I'm just like, you're taking it too seriously,
Yeah.
listen to your dad's advice.
But I'm sure, I mean, it's hard whenever you're starting out too, and you want to know what you're doing and you want to be the best at it and you want to be knowledgeable for your clients and everything. So I understand where that, being hard on yourself comes from, but totally right. Like, don't be as hard on yourself. If, if possible.
Yeah.
Someone as determined and driven as you, I'm sure it's kind of difficult, but um, I don't know. I kind of feel that way sometimes too. So,
I've definitely gotten to the point where think I'm laughing more, and not that I didn't laugh, but I think I've gotten to the point where not I've done great. I'm proud of myself. I've done great. I've been doing this for a long time, but let's have fun every day, and
mhm,
that's what's helped with like getting a team. Like for the longest time in my career, I didn't have a team, and now I got two guys that I trust that are working for me that I'm teaching every day
mhm.
too, and now I feel like I have like a second teacher because Will's been with me 5.5 years now, and
Oh,
he's like
wow.
passing on a lot of that knowledge to Aaron. He's only been with me a year, and it's like I've taught somebody, and now like he was going over all this stuff with Aaron today, and I was just like, wow, I'm not even having to do that, and he's doing it and taking the time to do it, and that's really cool.
Awesome. So, when was the moment that you realized that you kinda needed a team and someone to, like, help out and shelter the load a little bit?
I mean, really, after 3 or 4 years of doing this, but
Mhm,
I didn't. I stayed with my old company for a long time, and then once I left my old company and I went to I started the Guaranteed Rate brand roughly 5.5 years ago. I mean, I knew I wanted to get a team then, and it was just when I opened the office, it was just me. But then Will joined me roughly 5, 6 months later, so it wasn't
mhm,
too far down the road that he joined me. But yeah, I realized a long time ago you just cannot do it yourself, and everyone has different personalities. And there's some clients that I feel that Will works better with, for instance, that I don't, and vice versa. And
mhm.
we have it set up where we're both going to be compensated fairly for it, and we can, he can do stuff for me, I can do stuff for him, and it really helps.
Awesome. So, how many are on your team right now? Is it you, Will,
And Aaron just
and
joined me
Aaron?
about a little over a year ago. Yeah.
Okay. And I'm always curious about this too. How did you come up with your company name of Guaranteed Rate? Was it
Well,
just
I didn't.
something that, like, immediately popped up in your head, or did you kinda think on it for a little bit?
I wish I came up with it, but this guy named Victor Ciradelli came up with it. If you Google him, he's like a billionaire actually, and he came up with it. And he started it in Chicago in the '90s. And
Uh-huh.
actually, the company, we're top five, I think, in the nation in total volume. Like in the nation, the company is like it's a huge company.
Wow.
It's a huge company that I basically got the opportunity to bring to Roanoke. So I wish I came up with the uniqueness of the name and all that, because I was fascinated by the marketing. I was with
Mhm,
my old company 11 and a half years. And,
mhm,
I was searching for companies to go to and who I should, and Guaranteed Rate just kept popping in my head. And I like saw their advertising and a lot of cool stuff about them. And I researched them and I was like, I need to talk to these guys because they are a market leader and they're going to be definitely a big mortgage company for years to come. So, wish I came up with them, but this genius in Chicago actually came up with them, and I'm lucky enough to be a branch manager for his company, which is just fantastic.
That's awesome. I mean, you must like it at least a little bit if you've been there for, as long as you have since 2017. So, um, must like it a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, we had our trials and tribulations. The guy that hired me, the regional manager that hired me, he shortly after that he left the company, and he's the reason I
Oh,
went
wow.
there.
Oh,
And
wow.
Yeah, and we were on an island for like a year. I had no
Mhm.
regional manager for a year, and there was a lot of days there where we were like, "Wow, what are we going to do? Should we consider leaving?" Um,
Mhm.
there's not much, trust in that since he left so fast. I had him for about a year, and he left, and I had no regional manager. I mean, I could have opened up a flower shop in my office, no one would have known, or whatever. So yeah, I felt like I was an island for a while, but then after that, things really came together, and I saw a lot of great things about it. Nothing is perfect, no matter where you are, but overall,
Yeah.
I'm very happy with the brand.
Awesome. Well, kind of going back to what you were saying about how sometimes, there's customers that you work better with, and sometimes, customers that Will works better with. How do you handle, um, a difficult client or even agent, real estate agent that you're working with? How do you kind of go about that?
I think we do really good at avoiding that period. Not saying we can, but I mean, our communication on a loan, if you work with us, you'll see that it's second to none. And Like Will, for instance, is so detailed. Not that I'm not, but he is beyond more detailed than me when it comes to like writing emails and
Hmm.
like letting you know where a loan is. So I think we avoid that because we really communicate with the agent all the way through the loan. We personally do that. Plus, we have some measures internally that technology wise go out to the agent to tell you where it is. We have a system where it's like tracking a FedEx package, basically,
That's
like
awesome.
guaranteed rate. Yeah, and you're tracking your client's loan like it's a FedEx package, and it's telling you, the appraisal's been ordered, the title's been ordered. We have to get uh, X amount of loan conditions from the client. It's approved or not quite approved yet. It's going to tell you everything internally. So our technology helps us do that, and we also take an extra step to do that. So I think we avoid a lot of that, quite honestly. Nothing's perfect, but our communication can kind of filter that out to begin with, I believe.
That's awesome though, because that's my biggest thing. Honestly, with any industry that you're in, or if like you're having work done on your house, or if anything at all, it's like just have that open line of communication. Like if something isn't done, that's fine, but let me know. And so like having that open line of communication and keeping everyone on top of any updates, even if there isn't an update, I think that's the biggest game changer because it's whenever you're trying, at least on my end, whenever you're trying to track down someone and you're like you have to get a hold of them, you have to know and you have to give an update. That's the toughest part. So I mean, having those automated checks built in with the system that you're using, that just helps you even more. um, so it's not as, it's still on you, but it's not as much pressure on you.
Sure, and plus we're local too, so we're right here
Mhm.
in town. And I mean, I'm sure you tell your clients, if you don't deal with an online lender that's in California or somewhere like that.
Mhm.
Deal with someone that's local to you, that's right here that you can touch because it's an advantage. You can come
Oh
knock on
yeah.
our door. If you're not good at uploading or emailing paperwork, not everybody is. I'm pretty good at it. I'm sure you're great at it because you're younger than me, but not everyone is good at that, and not
Yeah.
everyone wants to do that. And some people want to meet face to face, and that's the reason we have an office right here where you can come in and do it old school. And quite frankly, we like to do that too because it builds that relationship when we do that. So
Exactly. And I tell all my clients too, I'm like, you can choose whoever you want. Whoever you feel comfortable with, that's fine. But like you said, having someone who's local in the area who you can reach on a weekend, because some of those bigger, companies, you can always reach them on the weekend if you need a pre-approval really quickly. So just kind of giving them all the information. And 9 times out of 10, they're going to go with someone who's local. But yeah, I completely wholeheartedly agree with you on that front. Um, so diving into kind of a little bit of a transition. Um, what is, and obviously you don't have to go into super detail with this, obviously with whatever you can, but what is one mistake that you've made in your time and experience with working in this industry that you've learned the most from?
that is a tough question, but I thought about it. a little bit today. I had a local, I'm not going to name names, but I had a local realtor that I had that does really, really well nowadays that I lost as a relationship. Right. So,
Mm,
I don't feel like I've lost a lot of realtors as a relationship that I've made a relationship with, but I lost her. And she does really, really well. And it stinks to see, I mean, not that it stinks to see her do well. I want everyone to do well, but
yeah.
it stinks that she doesn't use our services anymore over something that really, in my mind, wasn't our fault. But I
Hmm.
think she sees it as our fault. But basically, the client was, we go back into difficulty. He was just difficult with me the entire time. And
Hmm.
he really didn't communicate with me the way I thought he should have communicated with me. And at the end of the whole transaction, he thought that he was owed money, basically, right? And
Oh, wow.
so a lender, as you know, you've doing this for a little bit, a lender can't control what money is going to happen at the end. We can come close, we can guess to our best knowledge what we think the money is going to come down to at the end. But at the end of the day, we can't control exactly what the appraisal is going to cost, exactly what the insurance is going to cost, and all that stuff. So
Hmm.
under whatever impression he had, he thought he was going to get money back, and it came out to a zero at closing, like it was a zero balance. He didn't know anything, but he thought he was going to get his earnest money deposit back, right? And
Mm.
he pretty much blamed me for it. And
Oh.
yep. And if I would have, and I was just, I'm one of those people that just stick to my guns, and if I believe something, I'm going to stick with it. But
Hmm.
in hindsight, I wish I would have just paid his $500 to him. That even though it wasn't our responsibility, I wish I would have just given him the $500 earnest money out of my pocket to him back, and
Yeah.
I would have kept the relationship, because the realtor and me, unfortunately, I guess broke up after that, is the way to speak on it. And it's really something that I look at. I think about that a lot, actually, and it really kind of stinks that it went that way. But
Hmm.
a lender can't control exactly what comes to the closing, and
No, they can come close. And I mean, that's why I mean, there's been times where it's like right on the wire of like, okay, are we going to get this out? Are we going to get this out? Because your guys are just trying to get all the numbers and everything together. Um, so there's only so much you can do. I mean, if I had been him, I'd been like, cool, I don't owe anything at least. uh, but that's just my mindset. But that is a bummer. But sounds like you've definitely kind of thought about it a while.
Oh yeah, that was
Yeah.
years ago too. It was years ago, and it's it just losing a relationship. I don't care what business it is. You don't want to, as good as you are too. You're probably going to lose a relationship. It's just the bottom line of human beings dealing with each other.
Mhm.
But I hate it. It's just it's awful to lose a relationship, and that's why we just really value our relationships with everybody, our clients, our realtors, our appraisers, our everybody. It's a relationship business, and
Mhm.
you got to maintain them, and you got to massage them, and you got to be good with them and treat people right.
No, I completely agree. It's all built on relationships. That kind of blows my mind a little bit sometimes whenever I do work with other folks in the industry, in different facets of it, whether it's an agent or not. And it it's tricky because a lot of stuff is over texting and over calls. So it's like you don't always see facial expressions or hear tones and stuff like that. So that makes it tricky because sometimes I'm like, all right, maybe they didn't mean it that way. And you kind of have to filter it through in your mind. But then you're also hoping whenever you're having those conversations too, that they aren't taking it a certain way either. I don't know. I overthink everything, but I'm always like, I hope they didn't think that I was being rude or being sassy. So I probably overuse emojis and stuff like that. But um, sometimes you just don't know the tone, and that can change your relationship, even if you didn't mean it, how it came across
Absolutely.
to them. So
Absolutely,
it's
absolutely, and I
tricky.
gotta be real careful, because I mean, I'm a direct communicator. Like,
Mm,
some people like are really fluffy with how they communicate, and I'm just really straight to the point person, and unfortunately, some people don't like that. That's why I got Will. Actually, me and Will are great friends, but we got very different personalities, and I think that
so
and
yin and yang.
that's okay.
So a little bit of yin and yang with you and Will. Is that what I'm getting?
Definitely.
Okay. Now he has the dog though, right?
Yeah, he does.
Okay.
He likes to put that out there, and he's more putting stuff on Facebook than me necessarily. I mean, I don't want everything there every second, and he doesn't mind
Mm.
that, and that's fine with me.
Yeah, I love it because it's one, I get it like in a year from now, I'll see all the memories and everything that's popping up of like what I did last year and the year before and stuff. But at the same time, it's like it's free advertising. And whenever there's so much that you can pay for, but you don't always see a return on, whenever you can post on like Instagram or Facebook or YouTube and it's completely free and reach a lot of people, um, regardless of if you get a lead or not, that person who saw it, you might get a lead because their friend saw it because they were sitting next to them or something like that. So, um, I don't know. I'm always like, I hope I'm not bugging people, but I just had to kind of get over that in this industry because you have to market yourself at least a little bit, to let people know, hey, I'm a realtor, and you have to kind of do that too a little bit. But I mean, with you growing up here and having the community that you do and know, it's probably, would you say it's a little bit easier for you to gain business, and since you've been in the industry so long, or do you think that whenever you were starting out still in this market, in the Roanoke market, that you had to really grow kind of your sphere and clients and all that?
You still had to grow it. I mean, definitely I had some easier meetings because, being in Roanoke County and growing up in Roanoke County, I did know a lot of people and all that. But we were transplants to begin with. My mom was from New
Oh,
York
really?
City. My dad was from DC, and I was from DC. I moved here when I was 6, so
Hmm.
I started at Penn Forest when I was 6 years old. So,
Wow.
yeah. So yeah, I mean, I'm a transplant, but I'm really not. I feel like,
Mhm.
I consider Roanoke my home, definitely not the DC area, which I was born in. And, my parents were Northerners and they got,
Yeah.
eventually really, really adopted Roanoke. They felt like they were going to leave and move back or go somewhere else after they retired, and they decided to stay. So
That's awesome.
it's a great
That's cool
place.
though. I'm sorry?
It's a great place. I love Roanoke, and they adopted it and loved it too. And we really, it's really the best thing that happened to us moving here from the big city. So
Yeah. I would have to second that and third that and fourth that. Because it's kind of the best of like all worlds. Like you can get to downtown, you can go to the lake, you can get to the country, you can go to a tech game. Like you're not far from the interstate. So if I need to get home to Nova, like I can, want to get to Charlotte, it's just, it's easy and the cost of living is great. Sense of family and community is great. I don't know. I'll stop preaching
yeah,
now.
100%
But
agree. I think that's why a lot of buyers, even out of the area, have been attracted to the Roanoke area, and you feel like you'd probably say the same. You feel like you're really doing your job when you can tell you're selling Roanoke at the same time, and you're saying how great it is because you believe in it. And I believe in it, and I mean you should live here if you really want to escape those areas.
yeah, exactly. On top of that, escaping the traffic of Nova was like a very big lure also, because there's
Oh
been
yeah,
times where folks are like, "Oh, 81's terrible," which don't get me wrong, when you get stuck on 81, like it's brutal. But getting stuck on 66 and being able to see your exit and
yeah,
being able to walk to where you need to quicker than where your car is tough.
yep,
And that happens. It doesn't matter if there's sunshine or a drop of rain. So at least here it's a pretty drive.
absolutely.
And there's a lot of back roads. So I appreciate that. Now, what are your goals for 2023? Because I'm sure, we're basically at the end of the year. I'm sure you're probably thinking that. So what are your goals for 23?
We'd like to have some resemblance of 2021 and 2020 because
Yes.
22 was a rough year. I was in the business in 2008, 7, 8, which you probably read about was a tough time. It was a different tough time though. But I don't know if tough times the equation. I mean, anything is going to go up and down.
Mhm.
Stocks go up and down. Real estate goes up and down. I mean, the key that you got to remember is it's a long term investment, no matter which one it is. So, people that see that rates have gone up to X amount, and yeah, they're higher than they were. There's no question about it. It's definitely taken more buyers out of the market than we had hoped for or want. But I mean, it's always going to be a seesaw effect. Rates and prices, and just like stock prices, they're going to go up and down.
Mhm.
And things are going to change all the time. But if you're in it for the long run or even the medium run in real estate, I think you're going to be perfectly fine. And you just never know when you're going to be paying more
Yep.
or financing less. The key now is to get into a comfortable payment that you're okay with. And then, things change and you might be able to get in a better situation and refinance it later is the type of advice we're giving our clients. But our goals are to keep advising people like that and to keep doing the right thing, and the numbers will come. We were definitely down this year from 20 and 21, just like most people were. But I mean, I think that we'd like to get part of that back. We helped about 60 clients this year, which is not
Wow.
where I wanted to be. We were down about 50%. The year before we helped finance over 120 families. Year before that was over 120 families. So it's also been a rougher year for us. There's been less
Yeah.
activity, but real estate's still great. There's no
Mhm.
question about it, especially in the long run, like I said.
So, obviously, from what I've heard, because I wasn't in the industry up until this last year, I was in it on the other side, buying and selling personal homes, um, which everyone makes fun of me, so I won't bring that up too much. But it's still the running joke that I'm going to move, and I'm like, no. My husband said that he's going to be buried in the backyard if we move again, so we're staying put. But from what I've been told, 2020 and 2021 were kind of just like anomalies a little bit, and it wasn't kind of expected. Is that kind of, had you seen anything prior to that that was anywhere close to 2020 and 2021, or was that kind of a
Yeah, I
random?
mean, for us, yeah, because we have those refi booms where rates come down a ton and the phone just is nonstop ringing and you just can't get back to everybody. And like 2009, which was like a bad year for a lot of people, was one of my best years. I know I closed over 100 units by myself without an
Wow.
assistant. I had no team or no assistant, closed over 100 units that year.
And you were standing upright and
I mean, it was
your head
crazy
wasn't
here.
spinning?
I remember just doing a lot of refis and getting people into a lot better situations. But we were still doing a lot of purchases then too. So yeah, I mean, there were some years that were similar, nothing like the last couple of years, but definitely some similarities here and there of like how busy we were, I'd say.
Gotcha. Okay. So would you say, and you probably don't have numbers right off the top of your head, but for 2019 and for 22, are they kind of more comparable on numbers, would you say, as far as like how much you've done, or um, are you still kind of lower than what you did in 2019?
Yeah, a little bit lower probably than 19, which is a little bit frustrating.
Hmm.
We want to do more, but it's kind of like everywhere. I think everyone's kind of been on hold for a little bit. And, I listened to like our CEO, I listen to his call like every week. He has his call. And it's great to listen to this guy. And he could be wrong, but his advice is things are going to be a little bit slower, but come March, he thinks things are going to shake out. That's what he thinks. And
Hmm.
one of the reasons he thinks things are going to shake out is the Fed is only going to increase rates 3/4 of a point, more than likely one more time, and then they're
Yeah.
done. They're not going to try to battle this inflation thing after that. So the market should settle in, is what he was saying. So hope he's right.
Yeah, and I did hear about that on the news actually this morning about them talking about raising rates one more time. So hopefully that'll be the end. I had heard the same thing about, end of first quarter. Hopefully everything will kind of level out and calm down a bit. Um, what I can say, I mean, I have a lot of friends that are like, "Are you busy? Are you doing work?" And I'm like, "Yeah, people are still buying homes and people are still selling homes. That's not stopping." Like just this past weekend, there was a house that one of my clients was trying to snag, and the listing agent, I'm sure her head was spinning because she had 11 offers in the end, and like we had a very, very strong offer, um, and we didn't get it. So we were in the top three, but I'm like, holy moly, what did they have to do? Did they have to give a right and a left arm in order to get the house too? But I mean, it's still a competitive market out there, especially in like the range of 100 to 200K. I feel like that's where like the sweet spot for investors are right now. And then 200 to 300K is kind of where like families are trying to, snag those houses too.
Right, and
Um,
if you compare that to the rest of the country, that I mean, we're a lot lower than the rest of the country. You can like going back to the numbers aspect of it, you can cash flow those even with the rates where they are now, you can still cash flow those properties
mhm,
easily. It mathematically makes sense to do it, and then if things improve down the road and you refinance it, you're even winning more. So
exactly.
people just can't compare things to, oh, it used to be 3%. It's probably not going to be 3% ever again, or at least maybe not in
Yep.
our lifetime, you know.
Yep.
But if things do go down from mid sixes to 5 to 5.5%, which my CEO seems to think that by the end of next year they could, that's another good opportunity for people to refinance again or
Mhm.
even still buy at a lower rate. So
Yep. No, I totally agree with you. I feel like I'm kind of a broken record a little bit whenever I talk to folks because that I don't even know who came up with it, but the whole, marry the house, date the rate. I feel like it sounds silly because I feel like everyone uses it, but it makes the most sense. Like you're in it for the long term. You're not in it for the short term. So, you know, like you said in the beginning, find a comfortable payment and what you have to come to closing with and everything like that. And then as soon as you can refinance, do it. Um, but
yeah, if you're renting, you're paying 100% rate. That's what you're paying,
exactly.
100%. You're not building anything. So, um, even if you're paying a 15% rate, that's better than paying 100% rate.
Yep.
So, I think the more
Exactly.
we can educate people to understand that,
Well, because
absolutely the
then you
better.
have equity in it, like yourself. You're not giving your landlord all the equity. So, um, but we'll see. We'll see. Um, now, let's see. I know I had another question. And of course, I'm going to blame Finn, my toddler, because I feel like kids just take brain cells out of me um, a little bit. Um, and I guess we kind of already touched on it actually, because I was going to ask you how you feel about the current market, but um, we already kind of touched on that.
Yeah, I think we kind
So,
of touched on it.
yeah,
Yeah,
just a little bit.
it's a long
Um,
run thing. Just to reiterate, it's a long run thing. So,
yep.
anyone that's
Well,
in it for the long run should be okay.
I I keep agreeing with you, and it sounds like I'm just nodding and agreeing, but I really mean it. um, so I know you said that you don't like sharing a ton of stuff on social media, but you're trying to get more into it. So where can everyone find you? Facebook, Instagram, any?
Yeah, I need to get better at Instagram for sure. I don't do enough of that. Now, my goal this year, actually, there's a goal for 2023. I got to get better at, like my girlfriend, she can post all this stuff about her business and do all these videos on there. I'm like, how do you even do that? Like, how do you get something to go across there? I couldn't tell you how she does all that. I need to get her to start doing that for me, I guess. But
Yeah, just pay her in wine. It'll be fine.
there you go. That probably accept that.
Tell her to drink it after she does all the content for you, though.
There you go. There you go. But yeah, I mean, I still think we are fairly well advertised, and I mean, if you look at, I'm not a big fan of Zillow necessarily, but if you look at our Zillow reviews, though, we are number one in the area. I got over 120 Zillow
Awesome.
reviews. I think
That's
we have,
awesome.
yeah, I think we have close to 40 Google reviews right now. So if you Google guaranteed rate Roanoke or Jason Bialik team Roanoke or anything that has to do with mortgages Roanoke, we should come up. Um, rate.com/Roanoke is our site that you can visit. The easiest site to remember to visit, I'd say, is rate.com/Roanoke. It brings up our whole team and you can apply right there. You can also read about us, and it's very informative and gives you a lot of information about what's going on in the current market, too. So,
That's awesome. Well, I will definitely make sure to, in the notes in the bottom of the YouTube video, to put on blast every place that they can find you. But it was awesome chatting with you. And I really appreciate, like I said, you raising your hand and wanting to be on here, being another guinea pig, because this is only the third episode. So I appreciate it. And I just like meeting new folks in the industry because me being newer, I still want to meet new folks and, network and all that fun stuff. So I definitely learned a lot on this conversation. So hopefully we can have more moving forward.
yeah, let's definitely do it. Just give me a shout anytime. I'd be happy to help you out, and definitely go from there. And appreciate you
Awesome.
having us on. Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Thanks everyone for watching, and stay tuned. Like I said, I'm going to put in the show notes every place that you can find Jason and his team. And I hope you have an awesome rest of your night or day or whenever you're watching this. But have a good one.
All right. Thank you.
All right. I'm going to stop recording now.